Welcome to Data Forward, the podcast that keeps you ahead in the fast-evolving world of enterprise AI and data management. We bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and the latest trends to help you stay on top. Ready to shape the future of data? Let's Data Forward.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Data Forward. I'm Ramon Chen, your host, the Chief Product Officer at Acceldata, and I'm very excited today to have with me Matthew Cox, the Chief Data Officer at Fusable. Welcome,
Hey,
Matthew.
Ramon. Thank you, Ramon. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, excellent. I've been dying to get you on for the longest time, so I'm really excited to have you on today. So to kick off, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Fusable?
Sure, love to. So, I think, Ramon, I've had an interesting journey to the point of data where I'm at today. I started my career really in consulting. So solutions was a big part of kind of how it established my career and seeking to find solutions in different organizations. And then I moved into more of an engineering role. So when you're thinking about engineering applications, data is kind of form and function of just completing a transaction. And you're not really thinking about the long-term roles or purposes of data. It's about what do you do just to get it completed. When I was blessed to then move into some functional roles and actually running and leading marketing and leading sales operations. And it's in those functional roles where data really became a point of both value and consternation to me, because that was when I finally had to make decisions off of data.
Yep.
And so it wasn't about a transaction. It wasn't about just engineering a tool. It was about how do I look at the whole sum of data and try and derive something from it, get some kind of insight. And that's when I really, the whole, I guess, desire and energy in me to begin to look at data as an asset, as this point of value that you had to nourish and manage and maintain. And I really kind of changed my trajectory, because in those functional roles, I complained enough about data that the IT organization said, hey, well, if you're going to complain about it, why don't you come and actually fix it? And so I started getting into the roles of actually managing, maintaining, fixing, governing data. And it's put me on the trajectory to where I am now, which is at, gone through some organizations. I just recently was at Google and in their enterprise, helping to lead their enterprise data, and now being CDO at Fusable, with, again, that same kind of that intent or that motion of creating a data asset and then delivering great value on top of that. Now, in my role as a CDO at Fusable, it's a little broader than a typical CDO, in that I'm responsible for our engineering, responsible for our product, for our data, our cybersecurity capabilities, InfoSec, and now recently I've also taken on our internal IT organization, which this is an area I've talked about in the past. The product data versus corporate data, and how do you manage those two? And because they are different, right? There is a semblance of commonality between them, but there's a different landscape you typically are dealing with between the two. So bring on that challenge. So that's brought me into this role of CDO at Fusable. Fusable, we're really, as a company, we are the data and AI, we'll call it enablement backbone to vital industries, right? So if you think about agriculture, construction, trucking, industrial, we are the market leading provider of entity, right? So we think about managing this, we go to structure, data structure, assets, pricing intelligence, and really unifying the most trusted heavy equipment data sets in the market. And we've got some of our main products are RigDig, EDA, Iron Guides, Equipment Watch, Price Digest, and CAB. But it's infusing all of that into what we now call our Fusable Data Core, and then activating that data through various platforms, APIs, workflow connectors, professional services. So it's really kind of what's interesting, I think, Ramon, is if you look at my history and my career, it all kind of blends in this role, because I've had the consulting piece, engineering piece, how are people actually using data, but then actually being responsible for this core vital. And I've always believed that data is an asset, right? That you have to value, you got to maintain it, you got to nurture it. And I get to really balance all of that in this role of CDO at Fusable.
That's awesome. Yeah, vital data for vital industries. The tagline of Fusable is hits a point there. It's super interesting to me, because your data is your product, right? As you offer to your customers, and as such, you're one of the original data products, right? So the corporations today are trying to create data products for their internal stakeholders. So your discipline towards creating a data supply chain, making sure that data is of high quality, is something that our listeners would be extremely interested in. So let's talk a little bit about sort of, some of the challenges that you've faced and opportunities since you've been at Fusable for nearly 12 months now, I believe, right?
It's actually as of 2 days ago. Yes.
Oh,
It's officially here.
congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's always great, right, to look back after 12 months and see, what the situation was when you arrived and what are the things you've been able to put in place. So tell us a little bit about how you've gone about sort of evolving the data strategy at Fusable.
Thank you. Great question. So, I mean, I think one of the challenges in our industry is fragmented ecosystems, right?
Absolutely.
And you have data silos, and everyone's dealing with it. I mean, I've dealt with it every major company I've been at. It's not a problem that's limited to any one industry or one sector, right? Upon arriving at Fusable was really to look at the challenge of these product data silos and how can I begin to unify and combine those data sets in a way that gave a significant value beyond just the summation of data, right? So if you have, and you know this, right? If you have 3 or 4 or 5 data silos, right, there's a value set to each one of them, but the combined data set, being able to merge those and unify that together gives you a new level of insight. And that was one of the very first things that I've been working through this year, is to work toward unifying those individual data sets and creating what we call our data core, right? So now we have I actually call it, literally as a pun, fusing all of those data sets together in a way that we expect to really unlock a number of new capabilities from just a data standpoint. But on top of that, Ramon, one of the things that is that I've really tried to focus on the organization, we're actually getting ready to have some new products coming out here in the next 30, 60, 90 days, is really modernizing the methods in which our customers can engage that data. Because it's one thing to have really well-honed, well-defined data, but if you make it difficult to consume, right, you're really not helping the customers. So
Exactly.
one of the things that I've really tried to emphasize is this moment of truth concept, right, where we want to have our data at the point where our customers are trying to make a decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about just say, hey, I've got a lot of data here, go perceive and dig in. But when you're trying to make if you're trying to make a prospecting decision, right? If you're trying to make an insurance decision, if you're trying to, you're trying to weigh various pieces of insight, I want our data, Fusable data, literally at the moment you're trying to make the decision. So we are enabling new common services through APIs. We have a new Salesforce app that we're delivering. We have a new proprietary client that we're delivering out in the next 30, 60 days. So really creating new endpoints that leverage that fused data, that core data that we've now unified has been really the theme of my time at Fusable for the most part.
Yeah, and that's the notion of a platform, right? So you are delivering data products, but you want a platform to be able to allow the consumption the way your customers want to consume it in whatever method, whatever mode that they desire. Both real time and batch and so on and so forth. I think that's incredibly sort of the right way to go. As you know, Acceldata itself is a platform delivering data observability and agentic data management. We'll talk a little bit about the opportunities there in a second. But let's talk a little bit about trust in data, because you really want and need essentially high data quality. Your customers are trusting you to deliver accurate information upon which they're making their business decisions. How do you build that trust, and what additional capabilities are you weaving in order to ensure that trust is continuously validated?
That's a great question, because to your point, it's not just about creating a face to the data, right? At the end of the day, there's an engine that occurs behind. We used to call them data factories. There's various terms people have used in the past to describe how you're orchestrating data behind the scenes. I think customer trust for me comes from a number of venues. Number one, I think it goes back to that point I made about the moment of truth, right? Is our data there at the point that they're trusting us to engage in their business process, right? So I think making sure that we're there at that moment is very important. You hit on data quality. Data quality we've used that term, so loosely over the years, right? Data governance so loosely over the years, right? And so it means a lot of things to a lot of people. But I think it gets into in my mind, it comes into a lot of different venues that you're trying to, as you're managing data. I think part of it is that operational excellence you just kind of alluded to, right? Are we tracking the lineage? Are we tracking the changes? Are we, looking at the operational aspect of transitioning data from one set to the other? Are we looking at the drift over time of our data? I mean, there's all this work that has to occur, right? That from an operational standpoint is absolutely necessary for our customer to trust that, I agree, I believed in your data a year ago. Can I still believe it today?
Mhm.
And I think in addition to that, it's the operational nature of the service you deliver, right? Can they rely that I'm going to be there as a service? Are my APIs functioning today, tomorrow? Do I have a good semblance of how my actual platform operations are in place? And then I think finally, data security. Data security is a big part. I mean, I spent a lot of time at McAfee and certainly at Google, where data security were key areas and themes of importance, right? And so as we're thinking about, device to cloud, or we're looking at multi-cloud, or we're looking at how our customers are engaging our data, we want that trust, and we're delivering in a secure way. We're securing their data appropriately. So I think if you combine all those together, being in the right place, being operationally secure, and be able to demonstrate, right, that you're operationally secure, actually be able to give statistics and give information to your customers, focusing on data quality, data governance, but then also, helping the customers understand our firm belief in data security and how we're orchestrating our platforms and data to ensure security is at the forefront, or be what we call security first
Right.
in that effort.
Yeah, that's very, very great points that you make relative to security, because that's often thought of as cybersecurity and detection and so on and so forth. But data security is very much on everybody's mind these days,
Yes.
especially with the ability to take large data sets and plug them into AI and ChatGPT and all of these things, and having data loss prevention and all sorts. So I think people and everybody watching here would be very glad to hear that Fusable has that mindset, security first, because it's important to safeguard all of that. Now, it's a crowded field, right? So Fusable has a very unique value proposition, but there are a lot of people out there selling data, offering data products. What would you say? You've described some of your unique ways to approach things, and our customer and your customer first and data first, security first focus. What are some unique things that Fusable brings to the table?
Well, I think there's a variety of things that are important for us to recognize as an organization, what we're able to deliver. I think, number one is as we walk through our conversation, the new products and new capabilities and the new ways of orchestrating data, I think are vitally important, because our customers, and I think this is really for a customer, any data organization, they want well-structured, well-organized data. They don't want they don't have to second guess what our data is trying to tell them, right? And so, I think that there's an aspect of that the more effective you are in delivering that pace of digital services, data, new product capabilities, those endpoints allow you to connect with data that's more feasible and is more fits directly into the workflow of a customer. I think that really helps you stand out. So I think that's really important. But on top of that, it's not just about the transaction, it's about the insight, right? We have 20, 30 years. We have not only the breadth of data, but a depth of data, right? So really positioning ourselves as being insight driven and be able to not just provide them raw materials, right, to make a decision, but actually give them guidance on exactly what they can deliver, right, or give them guidance in that decision-making process on, this is the scoring, this is the additional breadth of information you may want to be looking at. I think is very important for us as we look at serving these very distinct verticals, what are these vital industries, and the verticals support them. We have a distinct set of experience and knowledge, I think, that we can apply. They'll help with those insight-driven decision-making capabilities. We're spending a lot of time with voice of customer, right? Trying to listen to our customers. I think, as we, our customers, and I think customers in general, are asking a lot of questions about data and AI, right? What are you doing? How are you working? How can we best use your data? And topics like reinforced learning and ground truth and drive, capabilities, all these things start to come into the fold of the conversation. So really sitting down with our customers and trying to understand exactly what they're trying to achieve, I think, is a really important part of how we can now bring new capabilities to the table to help them succeed. And I think, finally, being fresh as an organization, looking at how are you, what sort of presence do you have from a logo standpoint, from a brand standpoint, being simple, precise, and modern. We're going actually through the process right now of refreshing our brand, right? And so we're trying to look at, our new look is really kind of embodiment of our core values, being practical, grounded approach, clarity, and trying to bring clarity from complex data. But at the end of the day, staying committed to those things we just talked about: data first, security first, being human accessible all the time, while also being precise, modern, and really impactful in those new products to help drive our customers' decision-making process. So I think that's helped separate us, right, these days in a very complex and crowded market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I want to go back to one of the things that you said in terms of data products. At Acceldata, we do data observability, and we talk about shifting left by improving data quality earlier in the data supply chain. That saves you a lot of money, because that way bad data doesn't proceed down, and you don't waste processing, and you don't make bad decisions. So many of our corporate customers use that philosophy in order to, once they receive the Fusable data or any third-party data products, they first vet that to make sure that it's good to go and it's appropriate for them, and then it moves down the supply chain. I must imagine what you described as data products kind of sparked something in my head, that the more you package up insights rather than supplying raw data, because of the hundreds and thousands of customers that you have, they benefit from those insights unlocked, rather than themselves having to do it individually within their own organizations when they receive that raw data. That is tremendous, right? Because you're delivering value immediately and not just the raw goods, as you said.
Well, but I think you hit on an important point, right? There was a time when we talked about the washing machine, right? Just give me your data, no matter what it was, and I'll find a way to clean it up at some point in the process and then spit it back out. And I think your point on observability and what Acceldata is doing is incredibly important to the processes we're trying to invoke now, which is we're pushing data quality closer and closer and closer to that data create moment.
Exactly.
Right. And trying to really look at, it's not ingest everything and then figure out a way to clean it up. It's look at it from the ingestion point on, right? Look at data quality at the very forefront. And I think one of the things, our customers are going to appreciate more and more is we are taking that perspective to the fullest extent possible, right? We're trying to clean at the very beginning, whether it's structural cleansing, validation, all the different tools you can apply, but then have that then feed into our engine as a clean, organized, well-observed, it's series of destinations from a data standpoint, but also recognizing the need to track lineage, right? For me, lineage is such an important part that gets really a lot of times doesn't get the focus it needs, because I need to understand the where and the why did something change in the process, right? It started off as A, it ended up being D at the customer. How did it happen, right?
Exactly.
And that lineage is super important. And I'm very excited about tools that are coming into the marketplace and what you guys have to offer on helping us understand lineage and observability through that sequence, which is vital for us to deliver ultimately the highest quality product we can to our customers.
And then that's the highest quality product and most trusted product, but at the most efficient cost as well, right? Because you're essentially, many people think that investing in data quality means spending money. The fact is that you're going to have to do data quality anyway, as you say, but you're actually looking at ways to make it more efficient and save yourself processing costs, redundant processing costs, not having to rerun pipelines because some bad data got through, and catching it at the point of sort of inception at the beginning before it reaches too far downstream. And you absolutely, with the trust of data, do not want any bad data going to your customers, because that's going to impact their bottom line.
Well, and you hit on from an operational standpoint, the redundancy challenge, right? And this idea that I cleansed it once, then I cleansed it again, then I cleansed it a third time.
Yeah.
And not only do you run the issue of you're overusing resources, but you may have cleansed it in alternate ways. It's actually reformed the data from its original intent. And so those are areas I worry about as well, is making sure that there's a consistency and a simplicity in which we engage that cleansing process.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about AI. I think I may have snuck the word in earlier, but we haven't talked about that up until now. How, with your background, you were at Google, sort of the home of the evolution of AI. Obviously, you have that ingrained in you. What is Fusable thinking about in terms of this new landscape with Gen AI and even traditional sort of ML AI? In regards to how you produce your data and data products?
Well, I think it forms a couple of things. Number one, the foundation of any good AI or agentic AI is well-structured data,
Yes.
right? Well-honed, well-organized. You hear a lot about hallucinations and noise and all these things that can throw off your LLMs or your ML initiatives. And a lot of that gets resolved, or at least diminished, by well-structured, well-organized data, right? Where you reduce the noise. So I think first and foremost, the work we've done foundationally moves us in that direction very effectively. So I think we're making strides directionally. I think number two, the efforts around reinforced learning, I think, are particularly important, especially as we think about agentic AI. I mean, I think from our perspective and the way we're approaching it is, again, we have a very significant and deep level of expertise in the industries we serve, right? So if you think about packaging well-structured, well-organized, meaningful data, the analytics or insight, right, that then can be derived from that we're helping our customers understand. But then you plug in the domain expertise and reinforced learning.
Yep.
Guess what, Juan? You really have a powerful package. You really have a significant series of capabilities that you can now wrapper with
Right.
agentic AI. And I am particularly excited about agentic AI just because of its ability, right, to begin to make decisions in a bounded way, but leveraging reinforced learning, leveraging this depth and breadth of data we have that's well structured for really becoming an accelerator for our customers in the areas that they're trying to solve. And I think for our standpoint, when I think about even agentic AI, I kind of take a funnel approach, right? So we serve a series of use cases. Within those use cases, we have processes we fulfill. So think of sales and marketing as a use case, prospecting as a process, but then you have personas that engage in that prospecting effort, right? And they're trying to make decisions. They're using data. They want to activate things. So when we think about engaging agentic AI into those markets that we're so well engaged, our domain expertise is so strong in, it's taking that knowledge and driving agentic AI to help serve the purposes of those personas within the processes and those use cases. And if you tie that with the data sets and the breadth and depth of data that we've put together, we feel we have a very powerful opportunity in front of us to deliver really robust agentic AI and AI solutions to this marketplace.
That's tremendous. And, thinking about, again, the data, garbage in, garbage out, the data has to be pristine to prevent the LLM from making bad judgment calls. Today already there's concerns about hallucinations, and rightly so, and a more shift towards a little deterministic controlled use of agents with human in the loop, obviously,
Correct.
in order to kind of make sure that the outcomes are valid and relevant. As you think about that, what are the kinds of additional challenges? We talked about sort of visibility and lineage and the personas within your organizations, the data engineers, the people who QA the data. How are they equipped with the necessary tools and capabilities to be able to 10x themselves, right, in terms of their efficiency?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on some areas that I think are important. And this goes back to servicing. So, one of the challenges we alluded to earlier, is these fragmented ecosystems are trying to bring them together, right? And there's a lot of challenge in order to be able to pull that off. And being able to engage or automate capabilities to help serve those organizations that are trying to collect and unify those fragmented data silos is a very important part of helping us, really, to your point, be a multiplier, right? So, from an engineering standpoint, we're looking at agentic, or we're looking at AI to help with code, right? So we're looking at that piece to bring it forward. Looking at AI, even agentic AI capabilities, to look at our data, right, and help us be able to connect these pieces of data that maybe we hadn't assumed was there, right? So it's kind of those unknown unknowns that helps drive for us, and then looking for tools to help us with, explainability, observability, right? Being able to track and understand the tenets of data quality as we pass it through the environment, but then also looking at it when we think about from an operational standpoint, how do we ensure that the system end to end is robust enough to fulfill all of the strain we're putting on them? So artificial load, and looking at how can we induce, a level of demand to ensure that each of those stages works effectively as we continue to increase the load that's occurring at every step. And I think that's very important, because like any assembly line, you can have 3/4 of it running great, but that 1/4 that's slowing everything down, ultimately everyone gets impacted by it. So trying to understand each of those steps and how they function, how well they can be organized, how we can be multipliers for each of the groups that are involved with. It's a data engineer, it's a an API engineer or it's a data analyst, and the tools we can bring next to them to help them be more effective. All of that helps us, to your point earlier, reduce costs, but at the same time, elevate our ability to deliver.
Yeah, the data democratization and having everybody talk to each other in a shared common perspective and language is one of the things that no doubt you saw at our recent event, Autonomous 25, when we unveiled
Right.
Agentic data management. It literally allows not only the data engineer to be 10x, 20x more productive because of their ability to get proactive notifications of issues and then RCAs that they can address rapidly, but also the business teams to come and also be notified, to be on the same page. And that level of collaboration is exactly what you're describing, right? A shared understanding and a shared agentic natural language interface to ask the questions of the data and the state of the pipelines, the state of the quality, to get everybody on the same page.
Which is important because everyone needs to understand their role and where they need to act. Because otherwise, the entire team, it's like this the soccer ball. Everyone's chasing the soccer ball where it's at.
Yeah.
And we don't want everyone chasing and trying to run down where it's going to land, right? You want everyone fulfilling their role in the field.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think that's really powerful is being able to understand who's acting, what needs to be acted, and then what ultimately the benefit we're getting out of the action being taken.
Yeah. And then let's talk a little bit about sort of how you guys think about your data products and your SLAs in terms of data contracts, right? Mm-hmm. That you want to adhere to a certain quality level. What are the metrics that you hold your data products to that pass muster relative to quality of delivery? And how do you think about that?
So I think about it a lot in, especially in that unified, and as we brought all those product data silos into one unified construct, right? This unified, we call our connected data strategy.
Okay,
great. A lot of it for us looks into, there's a number of areas that I think are important for us to measure. One is freshness, right? So for me, freshness is one of the most important things we're looking at is how from a data standpoint, are we actively getting the most recent data? Are we delivering the recent data? What is the time from, because if you think about a prospecting use case, there's a time element to it, right? It's like you get it in, someone's got to act, right? So if it's taking us 90 days to get a potential, prospecting activity out to a customer, we've already missed their window to act. So the time to action is a big part. The freshness piece is important, and how well we've been able to organize and, let's say, align all of those different data silos to that connected data element, that central kind of master data piece. How well we're able to orchestrate those connections is another part of our measure that's really important for us to understand, so that we're not having these dangling pieces of information running through the organization. It's a well-honed and well-structured. So that measure is very important. And then on top of that, the ability for us to deliver high volumes of data out to our customers, because it can flex, right? They may want 1, they may want 100, they may want, whatever. The ability for us to scale very quickly in that experience is another measure from SLA perspective that's very important to me. And I think the other part, is it's not so clear to measure per se, but the effectiveness, and this is more of our voice of the customer, but the effectiveness of our data in being able to be leveraged as ground truth at our customers and how well that's meeting their model needs is a measure that's it's a soft measure, right? It's a little spongy in how you define that. But I think that's an area that I'm wanting to measure more and more, is to ensure that the way that our data is structured and the way that we've aligned the individual silos of data together in that cohesive portrait is actually helping deliver on the model expectations of our customers as they seek to drive more and more AI capabilities moving forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of what you described. And then just indexing a little bit on master data management, as you mentioned. Obviously, you and I met when I was at my former company, Reltio, and the technology there very much gets improved if you have better data quality feeding the MDM system, so that the automated matches can be more accurate, reducing the manual introspection and the data steward effort, but then also getting the lineage, as you say, downstream as it goes down to the consuming systems and being able to see that end to end. So data observability and MDM very symbiotico in the whole supply chain. I find that to be fascinating.
Exactly. And there's one other piece to this that we're going to start measuring, because with some of the new product capabilities, we'll have customers directly matching some of their data to our data, right? So it's not just feeding them, but they're actually doing a company match, right? An entity match. And that's a whole new world of measure, because a lot of that, to your point, depends on the data quality of our customers, right? So the better data they bring to the table, the better we can enable our products on their behalf. So that's a new measure we're going to be looking at as well. How can we not only improve our matchability, but how can we help our customers improve the data that they're trying to bring to the table in order to be more successful in both engaging and then delivering the data they need to fulfill their business process.
Amazing. So let's close now, Matthew, and talk a little bit about sort of the future, right? So in some ways, the future is already here, which Gen AI and such, but there are other areas that need to evolve. And in your industry, in the data provider, data products industry, there's a lot of things that I'm sure you're looking forward to. What do you see and the markets evolving to? And how do you think the various technologies play a role, like data observability, master data management, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, well, let's kind of talk. I guess I'll approach that from a challenges perspective. So, I think number one, the fragmented ecosystems are becoming more and more attentive today than I think ever because of the desire to have that holistic and total portrait available. So I think that's a challenge. And it's really, the integrations can be very slow and costly. And so deciding where to focus and how to accelerate, right, is, I think, key to that piece of looking at how I combine that information, but combining in a way that's a well-structured and well-honed data set. Because again, I can bring all the data together. If it's not well-structured, well-organized, I'm going to struggle enabling it, because at the end of the day, a consistent framework is what's going to drive advanced AI, agentic systems, et cetera.
Absolutely.
And so when you add that with data governance and how you're trying to now fulfill all those pieces that you and I've articulated from the very start of I'm ingesting some type of raw data to what my final product looks like, being able to understand how it traverses all of that that's part of the great challenge today, because all those have to unify. If those don't unify, you really don't get the answer to the business question that's being asked. And so with all those in mind, I think where the future lies is really, the future lies in those who can actually connect those fragmented systems at scale, right? How well can you connect all those different pieces of the puzzle together? But it's also for those who are providing services that aid in how you manage both bringing the data together and then managing ultimately the efficacy of the data and the value and the quality of that over the course of time. So there's a whole new world, I believe, in enabling capabilities, right, that'll help drive those organizations trying to connect fragmented systems. But that obviously then leads into AI-driven insights, right? Whether it's an LLM, it's reinforced learning, or it's agentic AI, that is the path we're all trying to move toward. But I personally am very excited about enabling agentic systems, right? For me, supplying this high quality structured data to fuel these autonomous agents, right, and workflows, and whatever sort of decision engines that organizations are positioning to drive either its decision making or critical infrastructure. You begin to see how as mysterious as the future may look in some ways, there's actually a pretty clear path, I think, woven ahead of us, right? Organize, structure disparate data sets, put viable, enabling, multiplying tools around that in a preparation for delivering meaningful agentic systems that use reinforced learning in order to continue to move a company or an organization forward in whatever business goal they're trying to achieve. And so to me, that's, I think, where everything's heading. And if we're in the middle of that, which I believe Fusable is literally in the middle, and Acceldata is in the middle of that, I think we have a really positive outlook ahead of us.
Yeah, that's tremendous, Matthew. Your background and your experiences in consulting and being on the usage of the data side has really given you the inside track as to what is really needed, produce world-class data products. And you've covered the gamut today in today's episode. Really appreciate all of your amazing insights. Fusable is a great company. I would encourage all of our listeners to go check it out and read about it, understand their processes. They're really blazing the trail in this industry. Thank you, Matthew, for coming on. I hope to be able to talk to you again real soon.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you for the time today.
Welcome to Data Forward, the podcast that keeps you ahead in the fast-evolving world of enterprise AI and data management. We bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and the latest trends to help you stay on top. Ready to shape the future of data? Let's Data Forward.